Redditors with thin walls, what have you heard in your apartment? In college, I lived in a crappy apartment nearby the school, that was mostly populated by students. Halfway to class one day, I realized I forgot a book and had to rush back to my apartment to get it. As I was running up the stairs which shared a wall with the stairs in the next door apartment, which mirrored my own, I could have sworn I heard someone yelling. I ignored it and ran to my room to grab my book. As I clambered downstairs, again I heard yelling, and I paused to listen. I heard some unintelligible moaning, and eventually heard the words "help me" weakly groaned from the stairs next door. I rushed out and tried the door, but it was locked. I totally forgot about my class and ran to the apartment management office, hoping that someone was there. A manager was, thank goodness, and after I explained the situation, she grabbed her master keys and we booked it back to my neighbor's place. She opened the door and the poor guy was laying in the stairwell. It was one of the ones that goes up halfway to the second floor, then turns 90 degrees for the rest of the way. Clearly having fallen, I called 911 while the manager ran over to the guy. Ambulance came and picked him up, and I later learned that he had fallen down the stairs after passing into a brief diabetic coma. I guess he hadn't eaten in some time. I don't know too much about how diabetes works. Anyhow, to this day, I feel grateful that I forgot that book. That poor guy could have died, slumped halfway down the stairs with his face in the carpet. My old neighbor was a cam girl and I could hear absolutely everything she said in every single session for a good 4 months. Pretty much learned the names of her clients. I worked from home and it was always a gamble whenever I had to meet with someone virtually. I once heard a former roommate laughing with his then girlfriend about how they're screwing me over on money. Turned out they were taking my utility portion and buying various games and alcohol. Instead of confronting them, I confirmed what they said with the utilities company. They hadn't paid the bill is 2 months and I moved all my stuff out that day while they were at work. For good measure, I took myself off the lease and told them about the girlfriend that had been there 6 months. Lost the battle but you won the war, losers. You, man, if you don't like spaghetti, then you don't like me. I can hear when my neighbors vacuum. Our building tends to vacuum together as a result. I hear my upstairs neighbor and go, oh hey, I should vacuum, haven't done that in a while and it's already noisy. Then my downstairs neighbor and my left-hand neighbor start vacuuming. It's kinda hilarious. My right-hand neighbor doesn't vacuum with us but does sing opera while doing dishes. My downstairs neighbors are a couple with a 1-year-old boy. The baby's room is right under mine. They speak so sweetly to him I'm not even mad that I can hear them so clearly. One morning the dad went in to get the baby out of bed and I hear him go, "Can you say daddy? Can you say daddy?" And in the tiniest little voice I heard daddy. My heart melted. Years ago I had an upstairs neighbor. At 2 a.m. every night, I would hear something sprint across the entire apartment. I realized 3 things. It was very fast, it took small strides, and it never deviated from its path. One day, I saw my neighbor outside and I said, "I don't know how you have energy at 2 a.m. He responded with, "Dude, I've been working the midnight to 8 a.m. shift for 15 years. Doesn't bother me at all." That night, I watched him leave his house, drive off, and waited 2 hours. At exactly 2 a.m., I heard what sounded like 2 feet hit the floor in his bedroom, and the marathon started. A few weeks later, I see him outside. I tell him what I hear at night and he says, "That's strange. No one has my keys. It's just me and my rabbit up there." I once heard an argument that went a little like this. "Stop treating me like I'm stupid. You asked if seahorses were mammals. Jessica, they give live birth." My upstairs neighbors taking turns zapping each other with a stun gun, hitting the floor, groaning in pain, and then laughing like Beavis and Butthead. I actually manage an apartment complex where my office is surrounded by a 1-bedroom unit. The building is old and the walls are thin. The tenant that used to live in the unit was a quiet man but would frequently sing beautiful opera music. His voice was amazing and I loved it every time I heard him sing. Then one time I saw him in the halls and made the mistake of asking if he was the one who sang these beautiful opera songs. His face turned red but he confirmed that it was him. I told him that I always enjoyed it when I heard him sing and that it would always brighten my day. Never should have said anything because I never heard him sing again. I've heard and felt the neighbors upstairs having sex. And apparently they like to rearrange the furniture at least twice a week. William. We do not hit. His mom was visiting. He was 30. Yeah girl, you know you want this dick. My college roommate. 3 kids later it's apparent she did, in fact, want it. After the 3rd kid I'm surprised you didn't want some too. Clearly the dick was fire. Heard the couple next door arguing. The wife was furious because she realized he had been cheating on her after she found out she had chlamydia. He tried to convince her that she must have been the unfaithful one. She still lives there. He doesn't. In our old apartment, our upstairs neighbor had extremely loud, theatrically enthusiastic sex in the middle of the day. The puzzle was that he would stop in the middle and we'd hear him walk to where the bathroom is, stay there for a minute or two and then walk back and resume in the bedroom. It was the same pattern every time. We could never figure out what that was all about. Any ideas welcomed. My man HES going for 2 different rounds. Round 1. Do it. Finish enthusiastically. Apparently. ... Small break to clean up. Round 2. Honey, your turn. You put it in my ass this time. Not in my house. But I travel a lot for work and stay in a lot of hotels. So far my favorite was hearing someone banging around in the shower for a while, then this exchange. Loudly, hey, wash my balls. Louder, wash your own goddamn balls. Yelling, F you. Your pussy stinks. They got quiet after that. Probably because they heard me howling with laughter and realized people could hear them. I moved from far away, so I have a different state license plate than everyone else at the apartment complex. A couple of days ago I had my upstairs neighbor drunkenly ranting to his wife about what he thinks I'm up to. He's convinced that I'm on the run from something. I'm just in grad school LMAO. I lived next to a guy who took care of his disabled girlfriend. She stayed home with a nurse while he worked to support them and pay for her healthcare. Everyone really admired him for it. He used to get drunk and tell her that if she doesn't start putting out he's gonna throw her ass out. An argument about money while I was doing the dishes. It ended with a slammed door and one of them on a piano, hitting the keys like a maniac. Some people read. Some people go get something to eat. Some people exercise. This relieves stress by going crazy on a piano. Angrily plays Mozart. My university accommodation had paper-thin walls. You could hear people having sex 5 doors down, and I could hear my friends' music from even further away. Yeah, my college dorms were the same. My roommate asked from her room how to spell something, and our neighbor called to tell her how to spell it. It was hilarious to us. Gina, I love you. Gina, no. Gina, damn it, put the knife down. At this point, both the apartments adjoining to Gina's called the police. Gina's husband decided to spend the night elsewhere. My presumably constipated neighbor trying to poop. Someone blasting Middle Eastern music. What sounded like a woman forcing herself to puke, with lots of crying. I don't know if she had food poisoning, or was bulimic or what. I lived next to a couple some years ago and they came home after a night out and started fighting about who was better at darts. I thought they were joking, but it got pretty heated. Doors were slammed. More what my neighbor heard. I'm a deep sleeper and was an even deeper sleeper as a teenager. My phone alarm was going off for 30 minutes and my neighbors could hear it through the walls. Assumed it was a burglar alarm and called the police. Waking up to the police banging on my door was confusing. The alarm worked, just in a roundabout way. I heard the couple that used to live next door go through divorce. Their yelling got progressively worse until I realized that their relationship really wasn't healthy. Once she mentioned that they had split up and that she was moving, I was like, yeah, I know. The way my old apartments were laid out. The neighbor's bedroom was right next to my kitchen, dining room. One night, I hear them banging. Thin walls are thinner when the bed is hitting the wall while I was fixing dinner. I just turned up the music and continued on with my life. 2 hours later, I was cleaning up, doing dishes, and generally tidying up when I heard the familiar thump 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 of banging. I think, good for them, and bag up the trash to take out. Thump thump thump. I open the door and take my bag of trash outside. As I'm walking out, I see the male half of my thumping neighbors, walking in from his car, walking back from the dumpster. I see a half-naked dude running out of the neighbor's apartment. They moved shortly after that. When I was an older teenager, I had my own tiny apartment in the hood and a raging asshole gang member for a boyfriend. We would get in raucous fights and my downstairs neighbor would call the police. One time, I was crying quietly after a particularly bad fight that had gotten physical and I heard my neighbor arguing with her husband. No, I'm not going to mind my own business and ignore it. I don't care that he always comes back the next day and she forgives him. One day he's going to really hurt her or kill her and I'm not going to live with knowing that I sat there and did nothing when I knew a girl was being abused. I was naive and in love, I thought, and ignorant and young, and I had never considered it abuse. That felt so melodramatic, but I realized that my neighbor was right. Finally left him for good after that fight. So, good looking out random lady in East LA in 1999. I'm sorry for being the worst neighbor imaginable. Couple upstairs would argue frequently. One particular evening, they had an epic battle. It was hours long. About 2 hours into the argument, 11 p.m. on a weeknight, we heard the woman shout first of all. That was the moment we knew sleeping wouldn't be restful that night. My male neighbor from India belting out Hello by Adele at the top of his lungs. It was magical. Someone sneezed. We said bless you. They laughed. I used to live in a sketchy building and my landlord lived right underneath me. My landlord was a weird guy and there were all kinds of rumors about him the whole time I lived there. But I just tried to chalk it up to gossip. There were a ton of homeless people in the neighborhood, which was fine. They were just part of the neighborhood and anyone who lived there knew them. A lot of days they would hang out on our front stoop. And no one really cared or made an issue out of it. Anyway, I would often hear knocks that sounded like they were coming from the windows, not the front door. I would try to run over and catch whoever it was but could never catch anyone in time. So one night I hear the knocking while I'm in bed and it sounds like it's from the window right under me to my left, so I look down real quick, see one of the regular homeless guys in the neighborhood, and see my landlord open up the door and let him in. So I lay there listening, wondering WTF is going on, and as clear as day I hear the homeless guy say to my landlord, I need something to eat. I was just wondering if you needed a back rub or something. That's when I realized all the rumors I had heard about my landlord and tried to brush off were actually true. I could hear my neighbor fart, and when her phone went off on vibrate, it was like having roommates I couldn't see. Oh, I thought they were connected. Every time her phone went off, she farted. Upstairs neighbors were a single mom and teenage daughter. They were very loud. The mom's room was above my room. One day I had off and was woken up by sex upstairs. It was pretty common in the previous couple weeks. This time, though, someone came in and started screaming, "You're having sex in my bed." Turns out the daughter had been skipping school and coming back to the apartment with her boyfriend. They were the ones having sex in the mom's bed. The fight that ensued should have earned both women awards. I shared a wall with a Buddhist temple, so a lot of chanting and gonging. It was an awesome 5 years. My ex-neighbors never let their kids leave the house, and preferred to raise bubble children. The older son, 12 or 13, was pitifully fragile. One day I heard him crying because he shit on his own hands. He shit on his own hands. Wait, what? They warned me about you. I never should have married you. My 60-years-old neighbors. And recently a heated argument between different neighbors' adult kids. The son had caught his son 5 years old playing doctor with his sister's daughter 4 years old. They argued very loudly about it in the back garden, which is completely surrounded by other houses and apartments. I think at least 30 households could hear it. I heard my roommates having sex very loudly. I didn't say anything at the moment but sat them down the next day and talked about it. Turns out the boyfriend was at work during the time it happened.